Last time I covered Dogecoin, I drew these three lines that you can see behind me on here. They each represented something different. Price right now is exactly at the top one. So I covered Doge when it was about here. Talked about this line for a breakout target, which isn't much higher than current price. It's an origin line. It's the most macro you can get. Drew this line and this line. And the significance of these lines, I'm getting ready to rehash them first. So what I'll do in this video is I'll tell you why these are important, what my thought process was, and then now that price is touching them, I'll go back over the way price was likely going to move, and I'll give you the top two ways and the specific price paths, and you can anticipate literally how price will move around these lines. And in hindsight, in the next week or two, you can look back on this video, and one of the ways I draw price moving, it has a very strong chance of being accurate because I'm going to do about 4 different price paths. Among those 4, one will probably get it. So here we go. Dogecoin. So you can see how I drew this first one. Let's take off all of this. This is how I drew the first one. And don't worry about the origin lines. So these, right, this is origin line, blue one's the master origin line, I think. Origin line. Okay, so we're not looking at that. We're looking at this guy right here. So zoomed out of essentially all of Dogecoin price. That's what we're dealing with, okay? That segment. So to be on a 4-hour chart might be, 4-hour chart would probably do it. Maybe even the 1-hour chart. Let's try the 1 hour. Nope. 2-hour, 4 hour is going to be better. So I'm picking the 2-hour chart. My idea behind drawing these lines as being the obvious bumpers, where price will go to and be attracted to and have a high chance of pivoting, right? Doing something totally different than what it was doing the previous 10 candles of that time frame, small time frame. Price from June all the way to August. So for roughly a month and 10 days, about 95% of trading volume was specifically on these lines. It created a trading channel before it broke out, right? And just like how previous support, once you break below it, it becomes future resistance. The same idea happens. So just imagine that thought, and now that trading channel is kind of like a horizontal or a resistance or a support. We're going to treat it mentally the same, and that's why I drew these here. And I anticipated strongly that they would be where price would want to go and pivot, create pivots. All right, so now we're going to zoom into here to the first one. My idea behind the first one there's a third line here. Okay, so to Dogecoin's journey up to here, I was making the price analysis roughly here before this line was hit. I mentioned that if it were to hit this, and price was right here when I made the video, my idea with these lines was, I think it at least has to hit this trend line to come back up here. It did hit it, and it went down. But the idea was, it needs to pull back at least to this level before buyers will step in to come up here, okay? And you can see that this was a clear pivot point. So go down to the 3-minute chart. Price really dealt with this and it accelerated down right when buyers stopped defending it. Okay, because everybody was looking at it who was trading Doge, which is mostly retail traders. And once it was broken, then the sell buyers just stopped buying for a bit, right? Until you had another pivot point where buyers would step in, which was here. So let's zoom into that point. This line I labeled as another likely area where Doge would pull back to before it would then go up to that bullish target. So zooming in on the 3-minute chart, we can see that line is what the bulls are defending. It's a clear pivot point, right, for it. Okay, the next line down that I've drawn, is this an origin line next to it? It is an origin line. Okay, this next line down is the halfway point between here and here from that previous trading channel. I mentioned If I were to try to trade long up to here, I would probably try it here with stops, with the idea that it could easily hit this line down here. So set stops and expect to have to try it twice. I would try this line too for a long to try to trade it up to here because it's still pretty bullish, honestly. Not on this time frame, but on the daily it is. So had you tried this first one, you would have entered. Would you have been able to get your stops in profit? On an 8% move, you better. So the first idea, profitable. You were wrong, but paid to be wrong. Second area, I must have accidentally moved this. This was touching that exactly. Oh. Why? All right, let me move it back, actually. There we go. On the second one, where I said I would try for a second attempt, could you have gotten your, honestly, that was pretty exact. An 11% move. Honestly, your profit target probably was already hit. But you would have been paid to be wrong because your stop was in profit. The idea behind this line down here is that it's probably going to bounce there, but this would be my last attempt to try to trade up to that area, because after this, that's when it becomes probable that the current local high is the high and the next move up will be a lower high. So on lower highs, they can be aggressive. You could technically still trade up, but I wouldn't be looking to trade up all the way to that previous target if this is crossed. I would still attempt it here. So first attempt, second attempt, got paid to be wrong both times. Third attempt, but after this, if it touched this line, I would not. Like maybe I'd go for a counter trend trade, but I would not try to take it all the way back up there for a big trade. Does that make sense? All right, now what we can expect of price is, first off, I would go back, if you're a Doge fan and you're trading this, I would try to emulate what I have on my chart, because beyond a reasonable doubt, I just showed you that these are the lines to look at, right? Besides this one. The interesting thing about this is it has an origin line right next to it. So I'm honestly not so sure that this blue line is going to work out. I think it's going to actually go to the origin. This orange guy down here. Because they're so close. I think the origin line is going to trump the middle of the range. But anyway, I'm going to keep it on there because I want to see in hindsight how it plays with both, since they're so close. Watch price go to it and get stuck between it and just go sideways for 3 days like this. That'd be weird. All right. That would be undeniable proof that these were the bumpers. But anyway, I don't think that'll happen. Price could easily accelerate down here without dipping, failure, rejection, then coming down. Just heads up, the way that this is working out is this could invite a lot of sellers, and it could move aggressively down here without proving this to be resistance. Does that make sense? So typically when I see something fall off a cliff, by far the most likely way that it happens with especially Bitcoin and things that follow Bitcoin is it dips below, comes back up, either does a failure pattern or a rejection, or sometimes both, just like I drew, and then doesn't accelerate to the downside until it takes out what I call the punch low, which is the first low it makes as it kind of flies through. And that's when it accelerates, and it would go straight to this line, to the middle line for how big of a move from the acceleration point. It would be a 10% move straight down. I still think that is among the two most likely ways that price will move if it were to go down. But I think that because Dogecoin is heavily traded by retail traders and not sophisticated bots so much, that it's more mass market psychology, and it might be a 50-50 chance with the idea that in hindsight it's already hit this. How did it get there? I think it might go below this and not touch it as resistance. So it might do something like this and not do that, the most common way. All right, so those are the two ways I could see price making that, pretty big move down to this target right here. It's between 10.8 and 10.6, okay? But this area is going to be a pivot point. And honestly, Dogecoin could go down there and still be in a bullish, larger, I think a daily trend would still be up. Yeah, the daily trend would still be strong. Easily. See that? Hell, the daily trend could come all the way back down to here and still be in an uptrend, technically. But this would be my line in the sand that it's going to be on lower high watch, which means it's a probability that this was the top and my target won't be hit. Am I making sense here? Okay. So let's go back to the small time frames. If it's going to bounce from here, then the previous support will, even if it were to act as resistance, which it probably would if it were lower, it will already be above the area of profit taking the target anyway. So this comes out of play. So if it can bounce here, I think it actually has a strong chance of hitting that target still. So as of right now, I would, man, if the stock market weren't as bearish as it is, I would say it's extremely probable. I would say 70% that this is going to be hit. But because the stock market is so nasty, I think it might be still close. It might be closer to 50-50, just a little bit better than 50-50. But the chances of this still being hit are pretty high. Right? I would stop trying to trade up there when this hits. So, and if it were to bounce here, I think your acceleration, where it really, really starts accelerating, is going to be at when it crosses that wick, a box between that wick and this wick. It could race right up and do one of those aggressive moves. So your pivot point for where buyers will be attracted to really get in and jump in and price it really start screaming is in that area right here. And until that point, just, make sure you get your stops and profit. If you're trying to, if you trade long off here and it does bounce, just realize that's where it could break down. But if it could get above there, that's also where you're just home free up to that target. It should go up there pretty fast, within 2 or 3 days, perhaps within hours. And I think that covers up, down, sideways, how it'll break down. If it breaks down, the 2 best ways. If it breaks up, the 2 most likely ways. I think that should keep you safe with Dogecoin and all these levels for probably the next week. Hopefully it was helpful.